everyone. I'm Kirsten Davidson, your host and creator of my wellness podcast, Mind the Gaps, surrendering our typical ways of looking at life to step out of our comfort zone and into our growth zone. Welcome to episode number 15, Long for Nothing. Today, I'll be talking about the gap between longing for things in life and looking forward to things in life. Too often, we find ourselves feeling empty, as if there's a void that needs to be filled in order to feel happy, longing for things in life. But I'm here today to invite a change in mindset, to advocate for us to feel grateful for all that we have and to still be excited about all the possibilities awaiting us, to long for nothing. This mindset gives us access to endless personal transformation and endless love for life itself. Because when we feel whole, we get to look forward to life instead of longing for a better one. For all things Mind the Gaps, you can find me on Instagram at kirsten.davidson. I'm happy to answer every single one of your questions, comments, or feedback, and most of all, I'm happy to have you as part of the Mind the Gaps community. If you're interested in booking a therapy session with me, please feel invited to email me at kirsten@mindthegaps.co. You can also schedule a session online through the link found on all of my social media platforms. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy. Let's begin today with longing. Longing means to be yearning for something, which also means to crave, to feel unsatiated, to feel empty in some small or big way. So much so that you feel like you need something, someone, some circumstances just to feel complete, to scratch that itch, to feel happy and content. For example, someone might long for a partner, a new job, a new house, a new wardrobe, maybe a drink. When we're in a state of longing, we're in a state of lack. I'll say that again. When we're in a state of longing, we are in a state of lack. Let's talk about glasses half empty and half full. In lack, the glass is half empty, and we're either sulking or frantically trying to fill it with the thing or things we're longing to feel full. And as all of us know, being in lack feels shitty. There's a sort of restlessness or hopelessness about it all. When we've convinced ourselves that we're lacking, we'll take one of two paths. One path looks like frantically attempting to fill a void that can only be filled by the things that already exist within ourselves. But we look to outside things, people, or places to try and fix our inside problems, when really, we have everything we need for healing inside of us. From personal experience, I can assure you that no amount of new shoes or fancy toss cushions will fill that void. This is because in a state of lack, nothing is ever enough to fill that void. Before we know it, we'll be wanting more and more and more, but still somehow feeling empty. Another path looks like taking on a victim mentality. Victim mentality is when we believe that the world is out to get us. It's usually accompanied with thoughts like, why me? Or I'll never be good enough. I'll never have what I want. This is when our longing paralyzes us. We don't frantically attempt to fill a void. We accept defeat and lean into hopelessness. We stare at the void and say, well, I guess this is just who I am. I guess this is just who I am. Now, that's a dangerous thought. One of the most dangerous, in my opinion. It shuts us down, it closes us off to our growth zone, it ignores or is unaware of just how much power we have to fill our voids with true healing, not just with stuff and people and places, but to really get down into those pits, to figure out why they're there to begin with. And then, almost like magic, poof, the void is gone. But let me be clear when I say that the poof magic moment doesn't just happen. It comes after a deep dive into the gaps, the place that holds us in our comfort zone no matter how uncomfortable that zone might actually be. And this takes courage and hard work. One of my favorite analogies for doing this inner healing is written by American author Michael Singer. He likens our minds to a river and our mental blockages as big rocks in this river. So long as we leave the rocks where they are, our stream of consciousness is slowed down and interrupted. Because of how adaptable we are, our streams will work around these rocks, even if it takes more mental and physical energy. Michael steps in with some good news. We have the power to step into the river and remove these rocks altogether. They don't have to be a part of our mental pathways. They can be opened up. This analogy does a beautiful job of summing up the concept of neuroplasticity, which is the scientific term for how we can actually rewire our brains by changing the patterns of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Neuroplasticity brings hope and completely shuts down statements like, "This is just who I am, there's no changing that." I invite you to step into this river with me and look at some of your rocks. It's here where we'll discover why we long for certain things to begin with. I like to categorize the origin of longing into two parts. One, traumatic wounds from adverse life experiences. This means the rocks represent trauma responses to undesired life events. And number two, social comparison. Feeling less than compared to other people in our lives, family members, friends, celebrities, Instagram vloggers, etc. Okay, so let's get into item number one, looking at our mental blockages as traumatic wounds. As a psychotherapist, this is my bread and butter. As I talked about in episode number 3 of Mind the Gaps, Gratitude for Pain, a common misconception about trauma is that events themselves are traumatic, when really, trauma is the emotional wound we experience as a result of an event that hurt us. Hungarian and Canadian physician Gabor Mate summed this up perfectly when he said, "Trauma is not the blow to one's head, but the concussion they get from it." I'll say that again. Trauma is not the blow to one's head, but the concussion they get from it. Think about how one experience might leave you feeling traumatized and another person completely unbothered. The experience itself is subjective. So while we're down here in the river, we want to figure out what traumatic wounds, aka rocks, are contributing to your longing, and whether you feel restless or hopeless about this apparent lack in your life. For example, maybe you were raised by parents who showed affection and praise that was conditional on your achievements. Maybe that led you to believe that in order to be deserving of love, you have to work hard to prove your worth. And in that case, your traumatic wound might be held in the following belief: I am not inherently worthy of love. Say that now you feel restless and are in constant longing to have the next best car, job title, facelift, etc., but it's never enough, is it? Or maybe you were bullied in elementary school and no one came to save you. No one stood up for you. Maybe you learned that shutting yourself out from your peers was the only way to feel emotionally safe, the only way to survive. And in that case, your traumatic wound might be held in the following belief: I will never be accepted. Imagine that now you long for friendships, you crave them, but because you've been rejected so many times, you don't pursue. You sit quietly at home, longing for connection. That rock, that belief that you'll never be accepted, gets in the way of your stream. It stops you from getting up and out into the world to make friends. While I do love inner child work as a therapist, not all wounds originate there. Let's say you get into a romantic relationship as an adult, where you and your partner become enmeshed. To be enmeshed means to be codependent, to lack any type of emotional and sometimes physical separation from one another. Relationships where someone loses their sense of self in their partner and vice versa, until one day you find yourself single. Your other half has, poof, disappeared. You are in literal emotional and physical withdrawal. You aren't sure who you are without them, and you're hurt. The kind of hurt that people wouldn't wish on their enemies. And as you've probably already guessed, you long for someone to fill this gap. Your traumatic wound is sustained by a belief that goes something like this: I am not good enough on my own, or I need someone to love me to prove that I am worthy of love. Now, this is an interesting one because in that example, the traumatic wound could lead us to restlessness or hopelessness, desperate pursuit of romantic partners to fill a void, or sitting on the couch eating ice cream crying into your pillows. As we all know, breakups usually have a sprinkle of both, ebbing and flowing, until we either remove the rock, remove the belief that you're not good enough on your own, or you find another partner. But if you jump into another relationship without first removing that rock, that belief, don't be surprised if you find yourself buried in more snotty tissues and frantically scrolling on dating apps. And now we'll return to the second reason why we have mental blockages in our stream of consciousness: social comparison, feeling less than when we compare ourselves to others. While trauma is a major contributor to longing, seeing standards set by those around us can make us question our worth, no matter whether you had childhood trauma. You might hold core values like, I am inherently worthy of love, or I am liked by other people most of the time. Aside from moments, days, or even years spent comparing your life, body, family, shoes to those who quote unquote have it better. In those moments, you might not feel so strong. I suppose I would even argue here that comparison itself can cause traumatic wounds. It can bring our healthy beliefs into question and lead us to lack, to longing. Now, comparison can also be very helpful in motivating us to pursue our goals. We might look at a fitness instructor and say, wow, I'd love to be that physically strong. And seeing them inspires us to take the steps to get there. But when we're in lack, we'll either say, wow, they're so fit. Seeing them makes me look bad and feel bad. I'm feeling anxious about my appearance, and I'm either going to exercise and diet compulsively and still never be happy with my body, or I'm going to fall into victim mentality, into hopelessness, and never even bother to step foot in a gym for fear of embarrassment, because what's the point? Whether it's trauma, comparison, or trauma by comparison, we have the ability to turn lack into love, to transform our longing for something into looking forward to something. As a prelude to what it truly means to look forward to, I'd like to share a metaphor about feeling whole rather than being in longing. This metaphor, which I'll paraphrase and add my personal flair to, was coined by Don Miguel Ruiz from his book, The Mastery of Love. Imagine that you're standing in a magical kitchen, a kitchen where you have unlimited access to any food from anywhere in the world anytime you want. You share your food with those you love and care for, and you're still in abundance. You genuinely enjoy giving and sharing. Now, imagine that one day, someone comes and knocks on your door with a pizza in hand. They say, hey, you see this pizza? I'll give it to you for free so long as you let me control your life. I'll bring you a pizza every single day so long as you do everything I say. You laugh and politely decline. You've got all the food you could ever need in your magical kitchen. You can already have pizza whenever you want. It simply wouldn't make sense to sacrifice your freedom, gratitude, and inner peace for this delivery guy. Imagine weeks have gone by and your magical kitchen has somehow lost its magic. You've ran out of food. You have no more for yourself and certainly no more to give to others. The delivery guy shows up again with the same proposition. Hey, this pizza is yours every day if you just do everything I say, if you let me control your life. You don't laugh this time. You're acting in survival mode. You agree to the delivery man's terms and conditions because you believe that you simply cannot live without that damn pizza. Only you can live without the pizza because in this metaphor, the magical kitchen is you. Yes, you. The food in the kitchen, that is love, gratitude, abundance, contentment. And the pizza, that's the thing you're longing for. Don Miguel says that like the magical kitchen, our hearts are endlessly abundant. There's simply no limit to how much love and gratitude we can hold within ourselves. And no matter how much love and gratitude we give, we'll never run out. It's sort of like a superpower. When we ignite the spark in our inner magical kitchens, we're way better able to turn things away from us that could veer us off of our higher paths. The paths that keep us healthy and flourishing and discovering. When we're in a state of lacking, a state of longing, we're disconnected from our hearts. And in that disconnect, we tell ourselves that we need that pizza, that we can't live without it. Whether that metaphorical pizza is a partner, plastic surgery, a pricey phone, or maybe an actual pizza. Those were just some things that came to mind. I love the magical kitchen metaphor because of how clearly it demonstrates how easily we can become slaves to whatever is marketed as the next best thing. Whatever we've come to believe we need in the outside world to feel good, even if it costs us our inner freedom. And it shows us how feeling whole frees us from the shackles of longing by having gratitude for our lives, our minds, our bodies just as they are, all while getting to be excited about true personal transformation, our never-ending growth that keeps on giving, instead of fleeting dopamine hits that leave us in lack, in longing. I invite you to take pause and think of a time when you experienced longing. Maybe you're experiencing longing right now. Now, a few things might come up, so I invite you to choose one thing that you long for, whether that be a feeling, an experience, a person, a tangible item, and ask yourself, what mental blockage is this tied to? What mental blockage is my longing tied to? And why do I believe that metaphorical pizza is the answer to all of my problems, or at least some of them? Like we've reviewed today, this blockage has shown up from your internal reaction to external circumstances. And just as it's our responsibility to free our minds from blockages, that must mean that we're also technically responsible for the blockages being there in the first place. Now, some of you might get your backs up at this. What do you mean I'm responsible for feeling down after events X, Y, and Z? I hear you. And I invite you to recall that events themselves are not traumatic. Our interpretation of these events is what determines whether we've got some trauma wounds to heal. I also invite you to free yourself from fault here. It's no one's fault for feeling down. We feel down as a result of a million, billion, trillion unique combinations of experiences that have shaped us and continue to shape our minds. And as scary as it might seem that we do have control over our internal environment, it can be infinitely more empowering. If you're this far into the episode, I'll assume that you're open to the beautiful journey of healing, and one that you can make your own, whether this be through therapeutic intervention, vulnerable chats with loved ones, journaling, meditating, inner child exploration, breath work, all of the above and more, the list goes on. From personal experience being a client and a professional, I wish nothing more than for all of us to be stepping into healing. This journey is lifelong, it's soul-nourishing, and its abundance never runs out. When we've begun moving those stubborn rocks out of the way of our stream of consciousness, we also ignite the spark in our magical kitchens. We get to have full hearts, bodies, minds, and souls. We get to be people who couldn't even dream of sacrificing all this abundance for a silly pizza with silly, silly conditions. In that state, when we feel whole, we get to look forward to life instead of longing for a better one. I'll say that line again. When we feel whole, we get to look forward to life instead of longing for a better one. Looking forward to life shows up when we see things we like or want to experience out in the world and we think, that thing, we'll call it thing X, looks wonderful. I look forward to enjoying something like that one day. If thing X for you is a romantic relationship, imagine looking at a couple and instead of experiencing inner hurt and despair, thinking, wow, their love is so beautiful. I look forward to enjoying something like that one day. If thing X is a vacation, imagine seeing people traveling online and instead of experiencing envy and resentment, you get to thinking, wow, the places they're traveling are stunning. I look forward to planning a trip for myself one day. If thing X is a quiet and slow morning, imagine seeing people soaking in the morning sun on their porch, and instead of feeling angry that you're late for your morning meeting while they're lounging, you think, wow, that person looks so relaxed. I look forward to creating more time and space in my morning to experience that sometime soon. Thing X can be as big as a life partner and as small as a moment in the sunshine. As you can see, there's a peacefulness in this whole looking forward to thing. There's a trust in the process that you'll get to experience the things you desire. Why? Because you have the power to. Notice how when we say we're looking forward to experiencing thing X, we're also implying that we will experience it. Not we might or we could, we will experience it. We'll no longer wonder if our dreams will happen, we'll just wonder when they will happen. And that, my friends, is manifesting. Speaking our desires into existence, and then, of course, taking the steps to get there. Depending on what thing X is for you today, those steps might mean setting an earlier alarm, saying yes to social plans to meet more people, or saving a little more each month. This traces back to how letting go of longing doesn't mean letting go of goals, plans, desires, dreams. It means looking forward to them and not feeling like you can't live without them. At a time when the spark was simply out in my magical kitchen, when I had way more rocks in my stream of consciousness, when I was less in touch with my heart, you can imagine that I experienced more longing and less looking forward to. It's hard to trust the process when you're scrambling to have your needs met or surrendering to unmet needs and accepting that as normal. Some things that temporarily filled my voids were shopping, redecorating my apartment, getting blackout drunk, receiving validation from others, and the list goes on. If I stood for too long in my apartment, I'd think, well, these toss cushions simply won't do. The cushions were perfectly fine for the record. Time to go to the mall, things will feel much better with some new pillows. And for a brief time, they did. Until my stream of consciousness inevitably crashed into the mental blockages, the rocks in my mind, and I needed more, something else. Here's the good news. When I started journeying into healing, when I got into my stream of consciousness and started doing some heavy lifting with those mental blockages, I noticed something. Days, months, weeks, in fact, years had gone by without me even thinking about the things that filled my void. I shifted from craving the next best thing to waking up every morning and genuinely feeling grateful for my space, my health, my body, and my life. I've literally hugged my apartment walls more than once. And there's more. When my magical kitchen was up and running and something good would happen, maybe I got a raise or launched a podcast or it was my birthday, I'd think, oh, I'm going to treat myself. And for a lot of years, that meant doing the void-filling stuff. I found myself going to the mall to expect feeling the same sense of excitement that I'd get when I was low, but I didn't really feel anything. I found myself presented with the opportunity to take shot after shot after shot at a birthday party, but I didn't really want to. I was feeling good already. I was so grateful for my life just as it was that I didn't really need anything else. I didn't really want anything else. This is the opposite of longing. Now, it's not inherently wrong to buy nice things for yourself, or to have a cold espresso martini on a patio, but these things just won't hold the same gravity as they once did for you when your magical kitchen is up and running. A drink, for example, might bring you some pleasure, but not nearly the same relief as it once did when it was responsible for filling your void. So I invite you to tune into that. Are those pleasant moments simply adding to your life, or do they feel like a requirement for you to feel happy, or even just to feel okay? If it's the latter, we're stuck in lack, stuck in longing. This leads to adopting and embracing an attitude of gratitude. When we can practice gratitude for what we have in our lives, everything changes. Our world becomes bigger than thing X and bigger than what we're longing for, bigger than the things we've been told we need or believe we need to feel happy. I promise you, everything you need to feel contented and happy is already inside of you. Remember, your magical kitchen has endless amounts of love and gratitude. There are no limits to peace you can evoke within yourself, but there are limits to the amount of home decor you can buy before breaking the bank or shots you can take before finding yourself in the emergency room. Having an attitude of gratitude means you get to wake up excited for what life has in store for you. Earlier this year, I had breakfast with a friend of mine who I met when I was in Costa Rica. Her name is Laurel. When I was sharing my ideas on gratitude and trust in the process, I realized that I'd been watching my life unfold as if it was a movie. Imagine that, waking up and embracing the idea that everything is set up to unfold just as it should, even when it seems like things are going wrong. I thanked Laurel for sharing her life with me, which I now call a movie mashup. Every time I make new connections to someone, I think of things this way. I think, how cool is it that a billion, million, trillion things had to happen for this movie mashup to be going on right now? Think of all the life movies where we must be extras, side characters, and main characters. And each one is playing out just as it should right now. The same way you get to look forward to watching a movie, you can look forward to watching and participating in your own life. Another powerful way to tap into this awe and excitement for life is to get a little bit more comfortable facing death. Let's think for a moment about the finitude of life. The fact that we're only here, at least in this dimension, for a finite amount of time. Shortly after American psychologist Abraham Maslow suffered a life-threatening heart attack, he shared his thoughts on mortality. He said, "The confrontation with death and the reprieve from it makes everything look so precious, so sacred, so beautiful, that I feel more strongly than ever the impulse to love it, to embrace it, and to let myself be overwhelmed by it. My river has never looked so beautiful. Death and its ever-present possibility makes love, passionate love, more possible." I love this quote because truly, the fact that life is finite is what can make it so beautiful. As a psychotherapist with a love for psychology and philosophy, I often practice what's called existential psychotherapy. The word existential means relating to existence. In philosophy, this is a discipline concerned with existence itself. I'll be doing a whole episode on the subject of mortality and existentialism, but for now, I'll say that a major part of this therapeutic approach is to make friends with death. What I mean by this is to be comfortable considering every single person's concerns, and my own of course, in the context of the fact that one day they'll no longer be here, nor will I, nor will you. Instead of ignoring death or forgetting about it altogether, keeping it nearby and using it as a tool to push us into growth, to embrace all that we get to experience in this brief and beautiful blip of a life. American teacher and founder of the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd, says, "If you let go into your fear of dying, the greatest fear, you will discover the gift of transmutation." Transmutation means changing states, changing form into something else. In Mind the Gaps terms, transmutation means transforming the version of you who lives in your comfort zone to the version that lives in your growth zone. And that growth zone version is exactly who you'll get to meet when you relocate from lack and longing to gratitude and looking forward to life. Being excited to wake up every morning and thinking to yourself, how lucky am I? There's nothing more I need in this moment. I'm whole. There are so many exciting possibilities on my life path, some planned and some unplanned, all of which I will embrace with an open heart. And for right now, in this moment, I long for nothing. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, it's always appreciated for you to follow Mind the Gaps on your podcast streaming platform and to share it with your friends and family. To stay up to date on the show, you can find me on Instagram at kirsten.davidson. Thanks for minding the gaps with me today. I'll see you next time on the journey out of our comfort zone and into our growth zone.